Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan Maye,
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you
Chase
show up.
Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got it.
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, all right. Welcome back into Operation Domination, the last episode to cap off the 25-26 season. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mader, joined here with Chase Thornton and Adam LaRue, and we're also going to have Chaz Fulardi on soon. That's right. We're cramming all the best of Operation Domination into this one episode for the big game. We can say Super Bowl while we're talking about it on the show, but God, it gets me every time. How stupid is it that
Every commercial, the big game.
As the big game? Like, how dumb? What a dumb copyright to build around. Like, it's ridiculous. There's no way it makes you more money. You have enough money. There's no way you're hurting by having it solidified to like you're only allowed to say this. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest because just going through the SEO today, trying to build this whole thing out, just made me shake my head over and over and over again. But anyway, like I said, we have a DFS Cocktail Hour. We got the best bets for you. I have my player props ready for you. And don't worry, I'll be coming out with more extensive player props for you on the huddle when my article drops on Saturdays, like it always does. But it will be the last one of the season. This show, however, will not be going anywhere. We'll have off-season talk starting next week. We already talked about quite a bit of the Senior Bowl over the past 2 episodes. Go back and download Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and check out our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. All right, gentlemen, as you can hear, my voice is already cracked, so let's go ahead and get myself a drink here.
Yeah, we're down to one game now, everybody. So there's only 2 teams in the player pool. It's a different animal for Super Bowl week. It's different from anything we've talked about all year, and it's a different animal betting wise and fantasy wise and every wise because there's only 2 teams left, and it's the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. And there have been some fun, usable fantasy pieces on both of those, but there are going to be some inevitably that come into play that nobody necessarily foresaw, that none of us throughout the year thought, oh yeah, that guy's going to play a part in winning a championship at some point. It's going to happen. So that's what we have to look for this week. There is no classic mode this week on DraftKings. And remember, we always talk about DraftKings when we're, discussing these lineups, and it does translate to the other, to some of the other providers as well. But I'm always looking and talking about DraftKings in terms of their prices and everything else. So we're looking at the Showdown Captain Mode. Normally we look at the Classic Mode. We're looking at Showdown Captain Mode this week. We're still talking about cash games, 50-50s, double ups, things like that, where we're looking more so to score in the top 50% of finishers rather than necessarily thinking that we have to win the whole thing and taking that big shot for GPP. As Dan said, as the player pool has gotten smaller, some of those strategies have kind of merged, but now that we're here at the Super Bowl, kind of all bets are off in terms of who's going to be the big scorers. Reminder for Showdown Captain Mode here. We're talking about 6 roster slots. There are no positional requirements or limits this time around. You can play as many quarterbacks, as many kickers as you want if you feel the need to do that. Was that?
Kickers are the toughest.
Yeah, right. But you can play as many or as few at any position as you want. The only, and including kickers and defenses. Kickers and defenses are part of the playoff pool. The only requirement is that you do have to use both teams. You can't do all 6 of your roster slots from one team. It has to be either a 5-1 or a 4-2 or a 3-3 combination. You cannot go 6 players from one team.
Would we want to in this scenario? Like, let's be real. Like, so I was talking to you guys about this before the show, and from a fantasy standpoint, from a guy who does player props all season, from a guy who likes to bet overs all season, This ain't the Super Bowl you necessarily sign up for.
No.
Like just putting that out there. So I don't think you'd want to between these two teams. Not that it won't be a good game. I'm hoping it will be. It's the last game of the year. Of course, I'll be watching the whole thing, so I don't want to be bored out of my mind because of a lopsided victory, unless I'm winning money. But yeah, it's kind of what it's boiling down to.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's fun storylines in this. It's a rematch of they should have run it instead of throwing it at the goal line in between the Patriots and the Seahawks, even though none of those people are still around. But these are a couple of tough ass defenses, everybody. So yeah, I mean, we could end up seeing an ugly game in either direction. We could end up seeing a slugfest. We could end up seeing a high scoring shootout. Who the heck knows? All bets are off, as they like to say. But you do have to use both teams. Remember that your captain, you have to choose a captain for your team, and that captain is going to score you 1.5 times his points in the game. But that also comes at the cost of 1.5 times his salary. So if you put a higher salaried player in your captain slot, it is going to cost you that much more than if you somehow figure out a way to put a lower cost guy into your captain slot. And that therein lies some of the fun of creating a Showdown Captain Mode lineup, not just for the Super Bowl, but all year round. So in cash games, we're still going to go safe here. We're still looking, like I said, to finish in the top 50% of finishers here. But in a GPP format, a guaranteed prize pool format, tournaments and the like, you're probably going to have to hit on a rando in your captain slot in terms of, who you put there in order to win that. So I will be playing it safe for my cash games, but I will tell everybody out there that in my GPP lineups, I'm probably, based on the narrative that's in my head for this game, and I think in a lot of people's heads for this game, I'm probably going to be putting a non-Drake Maye Patriot into my captain slot, just for a hint about how I'm going to be playing if I'm in a tournament setting going forward there. But let's talk about who we need to have in our lineups, especially for cash games. I don't think that there's any way to get around it. In cash games for Showdown and the captain format, you want to have the guys who are going to score the most points, or we assume are going to score the most points. You need to have those guys. You absolutely have to have those guys. And I know that sounds probably a little bit elementary, but you do need to have those guys, because if everybody else is going to play them, you can't afford to miss out on the 35 points that guy scores. So for that reason, I am saying that I have to have in my cash game lineups JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba from the Seattle Seahawks, and the quarterback Drake Maye from the New England Patriots, because quarterbacks almost always score the most points in terms of, on average, they score the most points of any position. And JSN has just been a point monster, especially compared to the other position players that are in this game. So you're likely going to put them in your captain spot. But if you do put them in your captain spot, keep in mind that JSN and Drake Maye are honestly the two highest cost players on the whole player pool. JSN is going to cost you, it's still the same $50,000 budget that you have under the classic games that we normally play. But JSN, out of that $50,000, is going to cost you $11,600. If you put him in your captain slot, he's going to cost you $17,400. Okay. Drake Maye is going to cost you a little bit less, $11,000 even if you play him just in a regular flex spot. He's going to cost you $16,500 if you put him in your captain slot. So if you put either of those two guys in your captain slot, the thinking is, if they score the most points and I get 1.5 times that, great. Now I've scored a bunch of points. But you're really going to limit where you can spend otherwise in your lineup there. Okay, for your other 5 positions, putting one of those two guys in your lineup, in your captain slot. I feel like I have to have both of them in my lineup somewhere. Dan, Adam, do you guys have, do you object to that idea if we're trying to finish in the top 50% of scorers? Do you have thoughts about whether you prefer or not prefer them in a captain slot? Go ahead and give us some thoughts on JSN and Drake Maye.
No, I mean, when you're getting into one game, don't try to outthink yourself like a fox. Like, you can get into the weeds and get all crazy and everything else. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this boils down to 3 key players for fantasy football wise, and everything else is going to be a dart throw. So JSN, Drake Maye, and Kenneth Walker. Outside of that, it's a dart throw. Sam Darnold doesn't have to do a lot for the Seahawks to win. right? So I'm not projecting him for a high fantasy ceiling going up against a tough defense and a guy who doesn't run a ton and frankly gets a bye, winning games mostly with one touchdown, with the exception of the Los Angeles Rams, and the Patriots defense is much better than the Rams defense is. So I'm not anticipating that happening here. Everything else is a dart throw. Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Travion Henderson, Rashid Shaheed, Ramondre Stevenson, whoever you want to throw out there. God knows who's going to produce. That happened throughout the season. It was a week in, week out basis that was inconsistent. So whether you're in tournament play or cash play, to me, the two players that have to be in my lineup are JSN and Drake Maye. To your point, because with Drake Maye, even though you have the tough Seattle defense you're taking on, this guy just came off of a game in which he rushed for 60 yards against the Denver Broncos. It's a similar setup as far as it's a fast defense. They rally the football, but Drake Maye knows offensively, ultimately, he's going to have to put his Superman cape on for the Patriots to have a shot in this game. So as long as that continues to be the case, which it will be, those are the two players that have to be my lineup. The rest of that, I think, is where we have the conversation where it gets interesting. Now, as far as your captain mode comes into play with those two, I'm putting the guy who I think is going to score the most fantasy points in the captain mode. I'm not overthinking it, and I don't care if it's cash. I don't care if it's tournament. And for me, it's JSN. Now, the nice thing about JSN being in the captain mode is that he's not quite as expensive as, let's say, a Drake Maye. Drake Maye would be over 2,200. JSN's about 17,500 as a captain. So you do get a little bit of a leeway while having one of the top two fantasy players in this matchup in the captain spot. From there, you have to take it from there. But I don't want to give it away yet, Chase, until you're good to go.
No, it's all good. Adam, are you going to fight back against this, saying that you have to have a lineup including JSN in it or Drake Maye?
No, I don't think you can. To me, that's like your floor. Like you kind of need to have that floor, and then you take your shots with your cheaper guys like towards the end of your lineup. But I think you put it really well. Like everyone's going to have those guys. You're kind of forced to.
Well, and for my way of thinking, JSN especially for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, you look at Jaxon Smith-Njigba's performance so far this season. Okay, whether you want to talk about regular season or you want to talk about postseason. Now, he wasn't great against San Francisco in the divisional round, but he did score a touchdown for you. So he still salvaged something out of that. If you want to look at the regular season, he had one game that you could probably consider a bust. And that was against Minnesota in week 13. He only scored 4.3 DraftKings points there. He caught 2 passes out of 4 targets for 23 yards. Keep in mind, Minnesota was the hardest defense for opposing fantasy wide receivers to score against all season. Minnesota gave up the fewest points of any team to opposing wide receivers, and that's the one game that Jaxon Smith-Njigba had that you probably could consider a bust. He was over double digits in every other game. In fact, he was over 13 points in every other game. He averaged 22.8 DraftKings fantasy points per game. I don't see a way to get around having him in your lineup, even though I know that New England is a tough defense. They're a tough defense, but honestly, against the pass, they're easier to score against passing than they are running. So I'm going to put Jaxon Smith-Njigba in my lineups. I don't see how anybody can necessarily argue with that, and we're going to leave it at that. Drake Maye, yeah, he's a quarterback, and Sam Darnold's a quarterback, and you want quarterbacks in your lineups if you can. But between the two, like Dan said, game script wise and the narrative that I have put together in my head, and remember, we've talked before, or I've mentioned before about betting the narrative, betting the game narrative in your head. Make sure you're not, contradicting yourself kind of thing when you're setting your fantasy lineups, whether you're betting, whatever. And in the narrative that I have in my head, there is a window. It's perfectly conceivable that JSN could have a big game and Sam Darnold, his quarterback, who obviously for the most part is going to have to throw him the ball, to not have a good game where you could feel okay about leaving Sam Darnold out of your lineup and still get great production and winning production from Jaxon Smith-Njigba. So between the two quarterbacks, Maye is the one that I feel is like the must-have in my lineup. Again, 11,000. He's going to cost you 16.5. In the captain slot. Both of these guys are expensive, but I just don't see a way around getting their production in your lineup, and because it's got to happen. Okay, Other guys that I like, though, for my lineups, and again, cash games, different strategy than your GPP, but I also like AJ Barner, the tight end for the Seahawks. He's going to cost you $4,800. He's going to cost you only $7,200 in your captain slot. So he's going to cost you about as much in the captain slot as some of the starting wide receiver and running back guys will cost you in a regular flex spot. AJ Barner, he's had a bit of a frustrating playoffs. We're not going to sugarcoat that. He scored some touchdowns early this season. He looked like he was going to be a touchdown monster. And then he had kind of a lull as midseason came on. But he saw very consistent targets, especially at the tight end position over the second half of the season. He became a weapon for this team. Now, he is still a trusted target, even though I know he's been quiet. He did get shut out a couple of weeks ago. But the closest thing you have in this game to a plus matchup in terms of, fantasy position versus either one of these two tough defenses, the closest thing you have to a plus matchup is the tight ends against either team. Okay. New England allowed the 15th most points to fantasy tight ends over the regular season. Seattle allowed the 11th. In fact, that 11 is the top matchup. Even if you want to look at points that they surrendered to opposing defenses or opposing kickers, tight ends are the best matchups in this game. Of the two tight ends, I like betting on Barner there based on, the way that they like to use him in the red zone. And like I said, the matchup and the game script that I have in my head. I also like Mack Hollins, even though I know he's probably not on the front of everybody's mind. If, in my opinion, this game plays out.
Bold statement.
With Seattle, I'm not saying you have to include him. I'm saying this is a guy I like, but he's a guy I am including in a lot of my lineups. Mack Hollins is going to allow you at $3,600 and at $5,400 if you are bold enough, and I don't know if I'm bold enough to put him in my captain slot, but if you are, it's going to cost you $5,400 there. The second half of the season, his targets really picked up. He was really seeing the ball a lot in, relatively speaking, in that New England pass offense. And then his injury hit, obviously, and he was out. Now, he did play last week in the playoffs. That was his first game back since the injury, but he did go 2 for 2. He got 2 looks, caught 2 balls for 51 yards. I'm willing to put a guy like that in my lineup because now that he is back and he is healthy, and I think that New England is going to have to throw, they're going to have to throw to somebody, and I like Mack Hollins in that. So I'm willing to take a shot on him in terms of one of those cheaper guys to fill out your lineup. That has to, because like Adam said, you have to have some of those cheaper guys to fill out your lineup, especially if you're going to use high price guys like JSN, like Drake Maye, like Sam Darnold, like Kenneth Walker. Obviously, I like Kenneth Walker too. He's $9,800. He's going to cost you $14,700 in the captain slot there. I love him for the role that he's going to have because he is going to be it in the backfield for Seattle. If Seattle is winning this game, if they are ahead in this game, they're going to want to kill the clock. They're going to have to kill the clock by using their best threat that way in Kenneth Walker. Now, yes, New England was tough against opposing running backs. They only gave up the 3rd fewest points to opposing running backs in fantasy, or 4th, I guess it is. But you only have the players that are available in this game. It's not like, oh, well, New England's a tough matchup. I'll go somewhere else and find a matchup that's more favorable. Nobody's playing against the Dolphins this week. Nobody's playing against the easier defenses to run on. And in that environment, I love Kenneth Walker because I know flat out that he is going to have the role. I don't know that looking across the aisle necessarily at Stevenson and Henderson. So far and lately, it has been all Henderson. It has been all, or Stevenson, pardon me. It's been all Ramondre Stevenson in New England lately. But we know for a fact it's going to have to be Kenneth Walker. So we got to have Smith-Njigba in our lineups. We got to have Maye in our lineups. I like Barner to be able to fill some things out. I like Mack Hollins as a plug-in at the end of that lineup to allow you to save some money or be able to spend up elsewhere. And obviously, I like plugging Kenneth Walker in as kind of one of those mid-level guys. Before I get to what we're drinking this week, Dan, Adam, any other thoughts or guys that you love in your lineup, or do you hate who I'm talking about here?
No, I mean, I'm making fun of you, but it's a crapshoot. Either Kayshawn Boutte or Mack Hollins is going to catch a big play. Which one it's going to be? Which one gets
Jake
to do more
Bobo.
than that? Flip a coin. We'll find out later. Like, so if you want to put in Mack Hollins, you want to put a little Kayshawn Boutte, you want to sprinkle some shares around, absolutely go for it. You can't go really wrong either way. Even Travion Henderson, who I know has been kind of phased out, even he has a shot at a big play, $3,800. You know, you got to make up some money somewhere along the way. The thing that I attacked, I think a lot of people don't really harp on when they go to these championship, classic showdown games for DFS is the kickers. I put both Myers and Borgalis in my lineup. The fact is, when you have two teams that don't have a lot of offensive firepower, especially from a fantasy standpoint perspective, the kickers can sometimes have a big game. Get a couple 50-yarders, that's 5 points each right there, and you start booming it up. This game's going to go one of two ways, and we're going to talk about more of it when we get Chaz Flaherty on here, but this game's going to go two ways. It's either going to be a blowout Seattle, or it's going to be a field goal fest, low-scoring game. It's going to be one or the other. So I'm going to roll both kickers in there. I'm going to roll Seattle's defense in there because we know what turnovers and pick sixes that they can do, and their special teams, Rashishi, he can always return one at any given time. And I'm going to say I'm going to bet on this being a low-scoring, close game, and firing up JSN and firing up Drake Maye, and then Travion Henderson is like the X. If I get one big play at Travion, their whole thing hits. But basically, that's what you're playing. You have the core like you talked about, and it's just a matter of where do I want to take my shots at? What do you expect the game script to be? Depending upon that, that's where you kind of line yourself up at.
Adam, are you worried at all about plugging kickers into a fantasy lineup here, or are you willing to take that bet like Dan talked about here?
I'm willing to, because I see the game script very similarly. I do in my lineup. I don't have the kickers, but I do also have the Seattle defense. So like the thought process and the whole like how you get there, I'm with.
Again, if you want to just get the most points into your lineup, and I know that projections are just guesses. Projections are guessing, predicting the weather kind of thing. But if you take a look at what points are expected to be scored in this game, the kickers actually come out very favorably. They come out behind the big stars of the game, the Kenneth Walkers and the JSNs and the Stephon Diggs and the quarterbacks of the world, but they outscore most of the other guys on the field. And everybody's going to be thinking about trying to fill their lineup with, oh, geez, I got to try and get maybe I got to get Bobo in there, or maybe I got to get the third receiver for the Patriots somehow in there, or maybe I somehow got to get, you do have extra options available that can score points in this format. And the kickers are a great place to do that. So I don't disagree with you at all there, Dan. I put together several lineups that I really liked, including my absolute top lineup did have one of the kickers in it there. So I like that idea. Keep in mind, folks, that it's the Super Bowl and it's one game. So something crazy could happen. If you're in that GPP tournament format, it's going to come down to something weird. It's going to come down to a 53-yard Jake Bobo touchdown. It's going to come down to George Holani somehow breaking free for a big one. And all of a sudden, that one play literally throws everybody's lineups out the window because not everybody has that guy. Somebody's going to score points. Think about Mecole Hardman catching an overtime game winner to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I'll say think about this, and then Chase will go into your drink there. Yeah. But I hit on the first play of the game in the Super Bowl last year, Jahan Dotson. I had an over on Jahan Dotson. Bam, we're right there. And that was a weird play. That set up one the game set up first touchdown. So, but what's the drink you got?
All right, the drink we got this week, it's the Super Bowl, and you guys have all heard the joke that it's the superb owl, game. So the great horned owl, the scientific name for the great horned owl is Bubo virginianus. Okay, Bubo is the genus in there. So we are drinking Bubo Superba or Superb Owl, Bubo Superba Punch this week. Okay, it's an easy punch to make. You can make this up either a one-off shot for yourself to have just a single drink or two or six, or you can make up a big batch of this if you're having a Super Bowl party and you want to give people, a run for their money here. So the drink here is 1 part gin, 1 part gold rum. Those are our main alcohols or liquors. We're also going to mix in, because we're talking about, a couple of port cities. We're talking about Boston, and we're talking about Washington State, Seattle, the Pacific Northwest. 1 part gin, 1 part rum, 1 part Elysian Space Dust IPA. Speaking of Seattle, right there. So we're going to put that in there. We're going to put 1 part Samuel Adams Cold Snap beer. That's right. We're mixing a couple of beers and a couple of liquors in this punch here. And we're going to top all of that off with 2 parts then, 2 or 3, depending on your taste, of apple cider. And I am using a North Coast organic apple cider, again, from Washington State. Washington known for its apple harvest there. So 1 part gin, 1 part gold rum, 1 part Elysian Space Dust IPA, 1 part Samuel Adams Cold Snap, which is a limited edition thing, but it's a white ale if you're looking for something similar. And then 2 or 3 parts of apple cider. We're going to mix that all together. I've got some apple chunks floating in mine. I've garnished it with a nice apple slice here. There's your drink for Super Bowl. There's your drink for whenever you feel like it. Because like I said, you can make a one-off of this. You can make a big batch of it. So Bubo Superba Punch. Good luck, everybody. Let's win some money. And, hopefully we get a good game to watch.
Hopefully we do. And to help us win some money, we have the great Chaz Filardi of Sports Betting Weekly and Championship Footballs.com. What's going on, Chaz?
Well, first of all, as you know, there's cameras everywhere. So I put it in the chat and I made myself laugh. Sometimes I just do it to make myself laugh. Nobody makes me laugh as much as I do. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. But Chase, I don't know if Dan told you, but there was one time you came up because I tried to do what you did, is just make a drink and do some measurements. Oh my God, it was nasty. I didn't throw it away because I would never throw it away. I remember one time somebody said, I don't think he gave me the right drink at a bar. I said, just drink it. Here's how it works. If you made it too strong, you're going to look like an ass, and you're never going to get a strong drink from this bartender again. Just drink it.
Right? Yeah, you got to conserve resources.
I'm coming off of 30-1, so
I heard.
I wanted football last week.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 weeks ago, right?
No, but I wanted again. I missed it last week.
That's right. Oh, man. What a great conference championship game that was. And hopefully we're going to be able to have some of the same luck in this game. Okay, so we talked a little DFS. Now we're going to talk about some bets of the game. And this is why Chaz and I work off, so well here. And we're going to get Chase's opinion in here and Adam's opinion in here too. But we focus on the game lines. Chaz has got those great quarter and half breakdowns for you. And then, of course, we got some player props. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through the big game first. And I posed this question early in the episode. I got to get Chaz's opinion. Chaz, what's your opinion on the fact that we have to market this as the big game and can't just say the Super Bowl when we put the SEO to the episode together?
Well, I pay.
Do you?
Pay. Yeah, I have to pay. Every football that I buy, I pay. I either pay the NCAA or I pay the NFL, so I can say it. Super Bowl championship souvenir football.
There we go.
No, and here's the thing. What are they saying the Seahawks might sell for, right? You don't get that many zeros unless you're getting money any way you can get it. And they'll take that 15 cents on a T-shirt if they can.
Sure. Well, here's the other thing for you. This is great because whether it's the Patriots, whether it's the Seahawks, I mean, you already probably have footballs like in inventory, no?
No. But we have a database of previous customers, and we have done both of these teams before. We started when Texas beat USC in the Rose Bowl. Vince Young. Think about that. Vince Young was like he was like amazing, right? Now it's just like whatever. But no, so we've been doing it a long time, so we do have both those teams. We didn't have a Rams one because the Rams won during COVID and we couldn't get inventory. That's and right. Who's the other? For San Francisco, we've never done a San Francisco either because they haven't won since
94,
15, 20 years ago. I know you know that.
Yeah, no, it's been more like 30, and it's a heartbreaker. The Packers are not far behind, but anyway.
2010's a lot closer than 94.
So we did a Packer one. Yep. I still have one. Is it up there?
I don't know.
Yeah. Signed by AJ Hawk and CJ. Who was it? The guy that had the dad and father played. Mathewson or who was it? for Green Bay.
Clay Matthews.
Yeah.
Clay Matthews, that's right.
So Matthews and AJ, I mean, Chase, you need to hit up Chaz and go buy that football. I'm just saying. All right, so let's get
you could get the Operation Domination discount too.
You could, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the best of the big game here. Or we can say the Super Bowl now that we're into the episode, and we have Chaz on to protect us. So the Seahawks are favored at 4.5. I'm a little surprised that it's only 4.5. I'll get to that in a second. The total for this game is actually 45.5 over under. So heading into this one, the Seahawks are, of course, 16-3 straight up. We all knew that. But they're 14-6 against the spread so far this season. They've been 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 games. That loss coming against the Rams last week, because remember, they were supposed to be favored by 5 points in that game. They only covered by 4. And they're 12-7 against the spread. I'm sorry, that's the Patriots. They're 8-3-1 against the spread against New England all time. So to the Patriots, on the other hand, they're 17-3 straight up. Seahawks played one less game because they had the divisional bye. And then they're 12-7 against the spread for the season. They've been 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 games, 5-2 against the spread as underdogs this season. So something to keep in mind there. Now, here's some historical spread numbers I thought I would conjure up for the Super Bowl itself. So for Super Bowl underdogs that are 4+ points, they have historically covered at an incredibly high rate. So the underdog at a 4+ point spread usually does actually cover. Now, I was telling these guys during the DFS segment, I see this game going one of 2 ways. This is either going to be a very low, tight game, or the Seattle Seahawks are going to blow the Patriots out. I don't see any chance where the Patriots blow the Seahawks out. So I see it going one of 2 ways. So with that in mind, I'm taking the Seahawks to cover at 4.5 points, even though historically the underdogs actually wind up covering. Because I do think, and I might even tease this up to 6.5, because I do think the Seattle Seahawks win this game by a full touchdown, full 7 points. The total of 45.5, I'm slightly on the under. I think both these teams come out a little bit tight in the beginning. Both have very good defenses. We might see some more scoring in the second half, but I would not be surprised. And I have the score for this game being 23-10 in favor of Seattle. So that's what I came up with. What do you got?
I probably should just leave now because you just took all my thunder. So no, I went through, and here, this is the one that jumped out at me. Seattle allowed over 350 yards a game in their playoff games, right? That's over 70 yards more than they did in the regular season, yet their average points per game dropped 2 points.
Right.
I was doing this last night, and I backed away. I always do. And what happened, guys, is, I don't know, week 3 or 4 this year, I realized I had 1 week where I didn't get to everything. So I did my plays while I was talking to Dan. And all of a sudden, I went on a roll, and I just said, hey, I'm not really superstitious, but I was regarding that. So I'm in the same place. But when I was going through these numbers, and remember, it's a neutral game, right? So we don't have a lot of neutral games. In college, you get a lot of neutral games. You don't get a lot of NFL neutral games, though. Now with Europe and Brazil and all over, you're getting more of them. But so when I looked at the away, so both of these teams are away. I looked at that. I don't know how New England is going to score points on this team.
It's kind of what it boils down to. And they give Seattle, like, they're both away, but Seattle's used to playing in San Francisco every single year. I don't know how much of an advantage that gives them, but I think there's something to be said about it.
No, of course. Familiarity with locker rooms, familiarity with temperature, the weather, the wind, all that stuff. The other thing that jumped out at me was how hard it is to use that last game with New England for any value. You get no value out of that. You know nothing. You know nothing more. And if you think you know nothing more, your father's a meteorologist. That's the only way you think you know more. Right? Because what did you learn from that game? You learned nothing. And so that impacts you. Now, I had both. I told Dan I was doing both games. I was going to have a defensive score. And they stole it from me because they don't even know the rules. Let the play go, swallow your whistle, let your play go. That's all they had to do. It was like 3-1. That's all they had to do, but they couldn't do that. This year has been very disappointing, hasn't it, with the human beings in the flags and stuff?
Well, and it's shows because one of the big narratives coming out is Roger Goodell. His big focus is going to be reviewing the referees and how they put that. And maybe they'll finally put some, at least the head referees anyway, full time. Or maybe New York will have the ability to overturn calls. Something they recognize something has to be done, and that tells you how much of an issue it was
in spring football. Now, I swore off spring football as of last year. It was just
good for you. It's too much.
Well, I was pulling the data, and the data wasn't helping, and I had to watch it, and it was painful to watch. I would rather watch Mack action, but they had that anytime challenge. The CFL, you could challenge stuff. All you got to do is say, "Hey, I think there was a penalty that wasn't called." There's face masks where the guy's freaking looking out his ear hole, and no one saw it but us.
And you know what? You know what they tried to hide behind, at least in years past? When they allowed teams to challenge the pass interference calls that were made and nothing was really overturned. And they hide behind that as if that's somehow an argument against being able to challenge 4 flags. It's ridiculous. Just be able to challenge everything, get it right. You have all these cameras, all these replay systems. There's no reason in 2026 now that we can't figure this the hell out. It's absolutely insane. So we'll see what comes out of it.
So here's some numbers. I'm going to throw some numbers at you.
Yeah.
I'm going to spit numbers. You tell me if these are good or bad numbers. These are the points that they've allowed in the first half in their last 8 games. 3-6-7, 14 against the Rams, 3-6, 3-3 Seattle. Think about that.
Bad.
Those are all professional teams they played. Not all of them were good. One of them was your team, the last game.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Yeah. So I really think I might give 14.5.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, we are kind of on the same page there. When I said 23-10, how about the apples?
So here's this. So that was the stats, and again, the one that jumped out at me was the fact that they gave up 70 more yards, and their average points per game went down to. That's amazing. This is on the road. Seattle, first half, allow 7 or less, 7 or 8, under 6 or 7. Allow 7 or less, 6 or 7. That's half 2, under 7 of 8. Allows 20 or less, 7 of 9 in the game, 8-1 against the spread the last 9 road games. Now, I'm not sitting here and tell you, Dan, New England's won me a lot of money this year. They're a great team. And I don't normally bet this game because I sell footballs, and I'm so worried about selling footballs, I don't really focus on the game. I've always done the first player to score, and I had some great hits with that. But after winning that 4-teamer, I'm looking at touchdowns, and I'm tilting all to Seattle.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I'm lined up too. Let's get Adam. Let's get Jason here. Adam, let's start with you. You're looking at this game. You're hearing all these numbers. Where are you lining up at?
Oh, I thought I was gonna be the crazy one because I was looking at potentially putting Seattle at a touchdown, and then I hear you guys going into the double-digit stuff. Suddenly feel a little bit safer about my decisions, but yeah, I think I see it very similarly. Like, it just matches up really, really poorly for New England. Like, their one saving grace is maybe if Christian Gonzalez can keep Jaxon Smith-Njigba like kind of sort of in check, and that's like all you've really got to hope for, because there's no other way out. And even then, I don't know that it's enough. So that's your game plan to win, and it still probably doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the problem is JSN moves all over the field.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because I didn't have him in my parlay, and I told my son who was watching game with me that in the sports book, I said, I'll tell you right now, if you bet any Super Bowl parlay that has to do with anything, and you don't have his name on it, you're missing something.
Chaz, how much time have I cashed the over on JSN so far this season?
Like 5 in a row, right? 4 or 5 weeks in a row.
Pretty much. So, Chase, let's get your opinion in here.
No, I tend to agree with you. I like the under on that point total. That 45.5 points just seems like a heck of a lot of points for the two defenses they're going to be playing in this game. And the fact that we've got a second-year starting quarterback in Drake Maye, and we've got a reclamation project, albeit one of my favorite reclamation projects, who I've been on for years, and that. in Sam Darnold. But I'm just between these two defenses, I don't see them giving up a ton of points. Now, hey, I say that, I put that out there. It's just like, washing your car when it's, when it's hasn't rained forever. Sure enough, the rain's going to come. So I'll probably say that I don't see these teams scoring over 45.5 points. And now we'll end up with an all-time record, 42-39 type thing. But I agree with you. I would take the under on the points there because of these two defenses here. In terms of that spread, in terms of, trying to think about like Seattle covering a 4.5 point spread. I told my dad, I texted you this, Dan, right after the NFC Championship game, I said, I thought it would open at 5. I thought the line would open at Seattle by 5, and the line is Seattle 4.5. I was pretty happy about that, but it has shocked me that it hasn't moved a whole heck of a lot since, in the last week or so in favor of the Seahawks.
So here, and this is where fans can have a real impact. Don't forget how many fans there are from the Patriot dynasties out there who want to bet on the Patriots covering this game, and it's going to outweigh the amount of Seattle fans. Now, the Sharps are all on the Seahawks.
Well, no, that is so great because I read an article and people don't realize how much more money comes in from those casual fans that it actually, because normally there's 16 games, you don't really notice it, I'll never forget when I was in Rhode Island watching a sports bar for a wedding, and I said, why the hell they got the Patriots on? The Patriots were not that good at the beginning of the year. They had a streak where they just kicked ass, took names, but then I forgot where I was. But they're passionate fans, and they're coming with their wallet. The stories of when you mentioned Green Bay, the guys mortgaged their house to go to the Super Bowl. So in that respect, you're absolutely right. I think the sharp money gets kind of muted here because of the passion money.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you don't have a good feel for the game and you don't want to bet on the game itself, what you can do is bet on some player props, and that's where we come in. So I'm going to rattle off some props, and I was actually impressed with myself, fellas, because I was actually able to get to a top 10, even though we only have one game going on this weekend. And there's a certain edge threshold that you have to meet in order to get in my player props. So I was impressed with myself. I was able to find 10 values, but here's the values. Let's dig into it, and I'll get your guys' opinion after each one. Drake Maye, passing yards, under 220.5. He's gone under that mark 4 of the last 7 games. The Seattle defense only allows 212.9 passing yards per game to the quarterback position. There's no good weapons in New England. He's practicing in full. I don't know if he's 100% healthy, though. Seattle's been one of the best defenses in the secondary. So I'm taking the under Drake Maye at 220.5. I'm going to get a quick reaction from one person. I'll go with Chase first on this one. What do you think?
220. I can see this going over. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable betting on this number specifically, but my narrative of the game, I think he goes over 220. So I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
Well, if you like Seattle, get by 14.5, which I do. You got to assume New England's going to be throwing the ball.
Exactly, therein lies my rub there. Yeah.
But you looked at San Francisco, so the Rams, like Stafford would have went over, right? But Purdy did not. The game before that, I forget who exactly they played, but that game did not. So because this defense is the way that it is, you could throw a lot of attempts, but if it winds up being for 5.3 yards per attempt, which has happened in some cases, that's where you still wind up going under.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you got that 212. Yeah. Where'd you get that 212? Was that just
that point?
213 passing yards per game to the quarterback position?
Okay. Oh, okay. Because Seattle's only at the end of the season they were under 200. They were allowing under 200 yards passing.
Yeah, it's different. So the team passing yards are going to be lower than the quarterback passing yards because it's calculated.
Of course, yeah.
No, I like the fact that that like Chaz said though that they're giving up more yards, but their points are down. I could see turnovers affecting this game a lot, but still having an opportunity for Drake Maye to throw for a ton of yards and just not having anything come with these drives.
Sacks. Remember, the Seahawks are in the top 5 in sacks. Sacks kill drives. Sacks kill passing yards. That's where we come at. We'll see. We'll see what winds up happening. My next player prop is Sam Darnold. Don't worry, I attacked both quarterbacks here. His player passing yards under 229.5 passing yards in this one. He's finished under that 3 of the last 7, so a little bit more of a stretch in the trend here. But the New England Patriots are only allowing 206.4 passing yards to the quarterback position. We already kind of talked about how Sam only does what Seattle needs him to do. If Seattle does win this game by double-digit points, that means they don't need him to throw quite a bit. So, Adam, let me get your reaction to Sam Darnold under 229.5 passing yards.
Did you know that Sam Darnold has more games this season under 20 pass attempts than over 40? If to exactly what you said, but I just mentioned that to put some numbers to it. But if you do not need him to win, they do not use him to win. They will happily win via the defense and the run game, and feed the ball to Jaxon Smith-Njigba a couple other times, but pretend the other receivers don't exist, and then suddenly you won. They're happy to win that way. If they get a big lead early, then they'll just run the ball, throw a couple screens, and get out of there. So, I'm very much so with you on this one.
All right. I like that. So we're in agreement there. All right. Chaz, you're going to get a 2-for-1 because both of these surround Kenneth Walker. So I'm attacking Walker's reception props. His receptions are over 2.5 for me heading into this game. New England has allowed 6 targets per game to the running back position and nearly 5 catches a game. It is a weakness of theirs. Kenneth Walker, to Chase's point earlier, he has all the volume because Zach Charbonnet is out of the equation. And Kenneth Walker himself has been over that mark 5 of the last 6 games. But I'm also going to parlay that up with his receiving yards. I'm having the over 22.5. He's cleared that 4 of the last 6 games himself. 22.5, Kenneth Walker. That could just be one screenplay. So I have that going. Chaz, what's your reaction to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about this all year, how they're complementary. And he just mentioned the fact that they're not going to ask him to do much, but guess what? That's the safest play you could have. Just throw it to a guy that's 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and has got 2 big guys in front of him.
Absolutely.
I love the parlay on that, because if you're taking him for over 2.5 catches, that means he's got to have at least 3 or more. The only time all season that Kenneth Walker caught 3 passes and didn't make that yardage total was game 1 of this season, when he caught 3 passes for 4 yards. So if you're going to do the one, you have to stack it with the other one. He was my number 1 player to score, and he did it.
He did. He absolutely did. I am attacking his backup in this game with those Zach Charbonnet. George Holani, I'm going under rush and receiving yards combined 27.5. Going under that. Now, look, I get it. He had 27 yards receiving last week against the Rams. I'm willing to bet that was more of a fluke than anything else. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at the fact that he had 3 carries for 4 yards. So assuming this guy doesn't get a swing pass where he just catches the defense off guard like he did kind of in that conference championship game, I'm pretty confident Holani is not going to get a lot of run in a Super Bowl game. They're not going to lean on him a ton, and he's going to get less than 27.5 yards. Chase, back to you. I can't hear you, buddy. You're muted.
It's George Holani. What are we talking about?
We're talking about.
If Zach Charbonnet was playing in this game, it would open up a whole new world of prop bets, and it would open up a whole new world of whether we think Kenneth Walker can actually hit any of his milestones. George Holani, I'm not George Holani. I'm sorry, everybody. For all we know, it is completely conceivable that Cam Akers is active for this game and actually, outperforms George Holani. So, I am comfortable going any kind of under on George Holani's totals, because in a must-win game, they're not gonna make the mistakes of the past when they didn't give it to their top running back. They're going to give the ball to Kenneth Walker if they need to. They're not going to waste their time with George Holani.
And that's why I couldn't believe that the rushing and receiving yards combined was 27.5. I mean, I actually want to thank him for receiving 27 yards against the Rams. That's the only reason this number would be this high in the first place. So it gives me a nice edge bet heading into this one. All right, here's a little doozy for you, Adam. And I giggled at myself when I had this one. So JSN, I'm under, but I'm under on his rushing yards at 0.5. 0.5 rushing yards, I am under. The last time JSN had a rushing yard was November 23rd, which means that for the last 7 games, he's had 0 rushing attempts and 0 rushing yards. So I'm under a half a rushing yard on JSN.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not follow the data on this one. Let me give you the one asterisk here. I'm gonna, before I even give you that, I agree. Full disclosure, agree, take the under. If you are going to disagree with us and bet favor New England, for example, or even favor a close game, in that situation, I'm not going to say I'd bet the over, but I would toss the bet personally. If I'm taking a close game or taking New England, then I would ignore it. Just given the underdog team in a Super Bowl always makes some goofy plays. Those rush attempts largely, with a couple exceptions. I know the Washington game was one for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Those rushing attempts he has this season were largely in games that were tight. The Arizona close game, I think the Tennessee game being examples. I don't think it's going to be close, so I don't think they go this direction. So I'm with you, but if you disagree with that, then I would toss it. I guess
the other thing I would point out is that for a wide receiver, a pass that goes backwards counts as a rushing attempt. So a wide receiver screen, depending
or exactly what you're thinking, or a flea flicker that he has to run because there's nobody covered. Nobody's
right.
open.
So I mean, it's out there. The possibility is out there that even if it's a pass play, quote unquote, it counts as a rush total. But I'm with Adam on
the
this.
The exotic plays should be coming from New England this week. I think is where we're.
and that, just like you said, with the player Behalani, the bottom line is, if I'm running the ball, I'm not giving it to JSN. I'm throwing to JSN.
Yeah, it'd be purely a desperation thing, and I don't expect a desperate Seattle.
And if Seattle is going to run any funky plays, it's going to be Rashid Shaheed, who I'm going to talk about next. So Rashid Shaheed, I have his under receiving yards at 22.5. He's been under that 4 of the last 7 games. He's only averaging 2.9 targets per game. He's usually looking at 1 catch. Now, with Rashid Shaheed, could it be 1 catch for a bomb? Yeah, it could be. But typically speaking, that has not played out to fruition. He has not been nearly as involved in the offensive side of things. I think we all thought he would be when the Seahawks traded for him, considering his history with Kubiak back on the Saints. But he has been a special teams wonder, a trick play guy that they've kind of enrolled in that offense, but not a guy who's gotten a ton of volume. Chaz, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm telling you right now, my greatest ever Super Bowl victory was the Bears against the Colts, right? When Devin Hester took it back. I had 40 to win on him at 25 to 1. I don't remember much. I mean, I won like 1,700. It was free play too. They gave me like 300 in free play. This is back in the day when you had to get a check in the mail. No internet yet. No, I mean, there was no crypto yet, and I was drunk my ass off. But I'm telling you right now, I will have him to do the same thing.
Yeah, love it. I mean, that's the bet you kind of want to make because it's got a great shot at doing it. All right, so here's another one. Chase, this is going to be fun for you because this was your theme of your DFS show. Jake Bobo. I have him over a half a yard receiving in this game. Now, over his last 5 games, it hasn't been always great, but the last 2 games, he's had 16 yards and he's had 17 yards, both off of 1 catch. So basically what we just need is Bobo to get 1 reception, and he'll get over the half a yard receiving. What say you?
No, I think that happens all day long. I think he catches at least 1 pass. I would say I would cap it at 2. But if he catches 1 or 2 passes, hey, he probably in all likelihood makes it past that half yard. Because as I said, to go less than a half a yard but still catch a pass, it has to be a backwards pass probably. So that's going to count as a rushing attempt. I will take that all day long on Jake Bobo. Yeah, I'll go over that because I think he does catch at least 1 here.
I owe him an apology, by the way, and since we're out there putting it out there, because he took Kupp's touchdown right when he went in there, and I thought it was Kupp because I didn't. Drink tickets were flowing, so I wasn't drinking anything fancy, Chase. It was simple bartender drinks. But the
It all
point
works.
is, then Cup got his touchdown, so I felt bad.
No, and plus Jake Bobo almost sounds like Bubo Superba, which is the name of this week's
That's
punch.
right.
So I'm going to have to go with Jake Bobo going over a half a yard receiving.
I remember once I was at a frat party, and all they had left was gin, rum, and a couple of open beers, and I didn't know if I just had apple cider, damn it, I could have had a cocktail.
You'd have had it. You'd have been good to go. Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh man! And if it was left over, we call that the Jersey Turnpike. So
there you go.
At the end of the night, it's any port in a storm. Whether you're talking about who you're going home with or what drink you're having. So heck yeah, man.
I'm curious, Chase, have you ever heard of the Jersey Turnpike?
No, I have not, because I'm from Wisconsin, where we just call it
because he lived.
Where we just call it having a drink.
No, because it's a little bit different. I'm going to get and Chaz has because he from New York originally.
Yeah, let us know.
But, so basically, you're at the end of the night. It's 3:00 in the morning. The bar is closing up. You lost some sort of bet. It is your job to drink all the leftover that has spilled into the mat all night long. And that is called the Jersey Turnpike.
Yes, I have heard that. I have not heard the name for it yet, but I mean, yeah. Sometimes you got to do that.
It makes her.
I'm not sure what that would do first. Get me to stop drinking or stop betting? Maybe both.
Just a little tidbit for all of you guys when you come out to Jersey, try to close down a bar. All right, be careful. So here we go. I got two more. AJ Bartner, player receiving yards. I have him under 25.5. I know this goes against Chase's play here for DFS. I get it, but I want to get Adam's opinion on this because he's been under 25.5 receiving yards in 5 of the last 6 games.
Yeah, no, I'm with you here. Again, it just comes down to like if you just work back from Sam Darnold throwing the ball 25 times. How many opportunities are we talking for people who aren't named Jaxon Smith-Njigba?
Exactly.
It is just not a lot. So if you just play the numbers, okay, maybe Barner gets 4 targets at best. They're probably largely underneath, just given how he gets used. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a great game, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he went 2 for 13. So...
And that's kind of what he's been as of. I know he had a little bit of a run during the season where he kind of got hot, and people are actually even talking about him for fantasy football purposes, which I thought was crazy because he's AJ Bartner. But he did get hot a little bit for a second, and then he's cooled off and gone back to being AJ Bartner, essentially, especially in these playoffs. When the games get bigger, the players move more into their roles, and his role is to be there to block and be the last guy you think of leaking out of the line of scrimmage. So I'm under the 25.5. All right, last but certainly not least, and I know Chaz is going to have an opinion on this because I've talked about him on our show multiple times, and I've hit all but once, Chaz, on this player, and you know what game that was I didn't hit him on. But Stephon Diggs receiving yards, not receptions this time. It's usually the receptions I attack on Stephon Diggs, but his receiving yards, 44.5. I am under that mark. He's been under 44.5 5 of the last 7 games, and again playing against Seattle, which doesn't give up a lot of passing yards to begin with. What say you?
Somewhere in an alternate world, right, there's a show with 4 guys just like us talking about New England winning 32-12. Okay. And they're looking at it from a totally different perspective. It really, right, as we talk about, as the game plays out, you kind of get an idea if you're right or wrong. And if you're wrong on a lot of things.
Sure.
And if we're right, we're going to be right on this one too.
Yep. No, it's about that game script, and what side of that game script you fall on can dictate a lot of bets, especially when it's down to 1 game. But here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to be smart. I want you to be safe, and I want you to enjoy the Super Bowl. I want you to check out Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app. I want you to check out our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. And I want you to go to championshipfootballs.com. And I want Chaz to talk about championshipfootballs.com a little bit, especially since we're on the eve of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you know what? The 3 years in a row now, we've done a Big Ten national championship football, right? So if you're an SEC fan, just look in a mirror. I don't know what to tell you. That's like 3 years. There's kids that weren't even born, and they can walk and talk now since SEC has won anything. One side note, Austin Hooper. Take a $5 bill, Put it on Austin Hooper for an anytime touchdown because he's a friend. He was the tight end at Stanford when my son's buddy was the second string quarterback, and they're still friends to this day. And it's a lot of money, and we laugh because he was on the field. He's on the field. He's on the field. That's he kept saying it the whole time we're in Vegas. He's on the field. He's on the field. If you are a Seattle fan or if you're a Patriot fan, you can go to championshipfootballs.com right now and do our pre-sale special. We've been doing it every year since the beginning of time, where we knock off $20 off the top. If you really believe in your team, you can save $20. If they lose, we give the money back. And we had to give some Miami people the money back.
Hey, he talked about Austin Hooper here. Everybody's on Hunter Henry, and they should be. I just said at the beginning of the show that the tight ends were the best matchups in terms of, fantasy points here. Austin Hooper is a great fill-in, and I have used him in a ton of places in my DFS lineups for the Super Bowl. He is a cheap fill-in at only $2,000 in your DFS lineups. And has a great chance has as much chance as anybody on New England.
If Bubo can get a touchdown, all four of us can get a touchdown.
There's always that one weird player in the Super Bowl who gets that touchdown too. So it's not a bad bet. Whether it's him, whether it's Bobo, it's one of those weird guys going to score because it always happens to seem every single year. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for the show. Everyone enjoy your weekend. But Chaz, as you always like to say,
this week more than any, you always be cashing.
Always be cashing. We'll see you guys soon.